Calling to order the Fairview Municipal Tree Commission meeting. Roll call. We have Scott McCoy, Rainey, Christie.
Yes, here.
Item number 3 is approval of today's agenda. I know that on our approval of the minutes, on our current agenda in front of us, we had an approval for minutes on the special meeting we had on April 23rd, but those are not yet completed. So we'll just scratch that approval section off of today. Any other comments?
Do we need a motion to amend the agenda?
I will motion to amend the agenda.
Second. Amending to remove the meeting minutes approval for April 23rd. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 5, old business. 5.1 Tree City Arbor Day celebration, recap of the event. Remaining task to send a package of data to incorporate with our Tree City USA application. So we had the event this past weekend, and how many did you say? What was our
I
count?
believe our count was 66.
And I actually had a couple of people contact me. One person contact me afterwards through Facebook, and they went out there. So maybe after we were closed up, but they wanted to get a couple of trees. So 66, 67. We've got photographs. We have a write-up article that was in the Loblolly Times. So, and with our program and all those other pieces, we have everything we need now that I can include in that package for the Tree City application. I should be sending that out this month. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to revisit the financial piece that I've had just to make sure it's still accurate. And with that, I'll be able to push the submit button and get the ball rolling, and hopefully we'll be approved for next year.
Does it take that long?
They grant it yearly, so in order to apply for 2019, we have to prove our 2018 worthiness, one of which is this event, part of which is our budget. So now as far as calendar, maybe they'll call us back in November and say you'll have it for 2019, but I don't know. Any other comments on that item? Item 5.2, Bowie Park Bird Sanctuary Plantings, an update on the group and timing and cost of the plantings for the trees to be planted as a bird sanctuary and habitat. Mike Berkeley's name's on that. He's not here today. Is there anything that we should discuss, or should we just defer it?
I make a motion, we defer it.
Old business 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Old business 5.3, landscape code review. Continuation to review the history and ordinance in the discussion, the other municipalities, their ordinances. I don't know that we're there for that today to discuss the others. I think we're still working our way through our current landscape. And progress was made over the past week, I guess, since our last meeting, in that some of the ordinances that we did not have hard copies of, I think we've got hard copies. And so I think today we can maybe just reconcile what the new information we have backwards against the document that the city engineer prepared to see if this gives us the full picture of everything in there. The goal being that at the end of that exercise, we understand where we are today. And then we'll be kind of prepared to discuss other cities, comparing and contrasting with what our current circumstance is.
So which one was it that we kept?
From what I can tell, it appears that ordinance 557 was the last one that basically wholly changed the document. The other ones after that were just for individual items, such as the makeup of the tree commission, the initial tree planting list was ordinance number 654. 662, we've just changed some wording about the establishment of the tree commission.
So when was 557 done?
557 was done in 2003.
Oh, right there. Okay. So, and what are the differences in 557 and 552? Do we know that?
The revisions.
Where?
It's right here, like, so this was 552. 557 wholly changed it, but then Will summarized the key differences that he spotted between those two versions.
Relating to the subdivision development.
Okay, so,
So 557 actually did specifically list both subdivision development and site development. Because we keep being told that it was only
commercial development.
commercial development, and this very specifically says subdivision development.
Which one is that? You're looking in what ordinance?
And which,
557.
and which number?
It is B, please. To review all tree protection plan proposals relating to subdivision development and site development plans for submission to the Planning Commission for review. The appendix item B, and I believe that appendix item B is attached.
Okay, well, I have a question. So if, the last time we met with Will here, didn't he tell us that we were not to approve subdivision plans? And I don't understand why if
Why,
he
yes,
saw.
he did.
Okay, so if he saw this and,
Let's make sure that in some of these more recent ones, it wasn't removed.
That's right, because that's a snapshot as of
Okay.
October, so then there's several things that have changed since then.
October 2003.
Yeah.
so ordinance number 565, which was 2004, talks about the members, and that's all that talks about. 654 adopted a tree list
Correct.
and does not mention anything about approving anything or disapproving. And in 2010, talks about the meetings. The tree commission shall meet for its regular meeting on the first Tuesday of the month upon call of the tree commission chairman. I think I remember us being told that we were not to meet unless the codes department told us we had permission to meet. So apparently that was not. So it appears then that 13404B would still be a standing rule, correct? So I don't understand.
Been removed. Design review manual somehow.
But I don't think the design, I don't think the design, no, I don't think it can override an ordinance.
No, the design review manual should not override an ordinance.
So I'm still confused as to why Will, what does Will say?
He says, define the following as a duty of the tree commission: review all tree protection plan proposals relating to subdivision development and site development plans for submission to the planning commission for review.
So that also appears to say we see it for the planning commission does, and we have to approve the landscaping plan.
I'll disagree. So this one that we're looking at, the 557 ordinance, I like it because it's got everything in it. And then as we get into some of these other ones that are thinner and they reflect like 768, a change in just a paragraph.
Individual changes.
So I guess one question I have is do we have a consolidated current single document that covers everything, that is kind of everything that's been brought forward with the changes applied? So there's kind of one master document that reflects all prior changes? Or is this a case where really to figure it out, you have to spread paper all over the table and X off parts and pieces?
This chapter 4 of Title 13 should include all of these changes.
This document does, with the exception of the last two ordinances, the 822, no, I'm sorry, 822 is okay. It's 850 that's not in there.
That's
Correct.
not codified.
And I can tell from trying to go through this paragraph by paragraph to see where the changes were, I believe that those are the only ones that are not in this document.
So,
Actually, if you look under section 13404 in this most recent compilation,
this one, or this one?
This one I gave out last week.
it has the one
Okay.
that I've handed out since. Section 404 includes this statement, which it should. I think we have mentioned before in meetings about, review the tree protection plan proposals relating to subdivision, development, and site development plans for submission. That, what was the date on this, 2003?
Okay, my only concern remains the same. We're looking at this, and we're not the city engineer, and the city engineer looked at this and even put this in his report, yet I wish we had the recording of that meeting. I mean, didn't he tell us that we had no authority to review plans? Christie, isn't that what he said to us?
Yes, as he stated in that meeting, was that to his understanding, reviewing plans was not under the purview of the tree commission.
But in this, what this says, for submission to the planning commission for approval.
That's how I would read it.
So I really think that what we have, that according to what we think is current, that the landscape plan is a good plan and in place, should be in place. It's just that no one's doing it.
Right, and just to clarify that language, you said, should it come to us for approval, and I don't read that here. What I see is we are to review it. It should come to the plan, to review all tree plan protection proposals related to it for submission to the planning commission for review. So I think it would be our duty to review it, make recommendations, but we're not an approval. We wouldn't approve or
Right,
disapprove.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, we review it and send it up for
with
Planning
any
Commission.
comments, markups, suggestions,
Any
questions,
changes that need to be done.
anything we would recommend or be concerned about.
Like
We
if there's,
believe that this doesn't comply because of X, Y,
That's
or
right.
Z.
because the trees are not on the list, because they don't have the required trees. I mean, so, yes.
So some of the language in the past that might have confused maybe Will was thinking, well, you guys don't approve anything. In that case, he's right, we wouldn't approve, but we should have the opportunity to review it
And
and
here's what
understand
needs to
it.
be changed.
Yes.
But we do have the, according to this, the right to deny permit. Because it says if the request, this is in the appendix, and I think we've brought this out before. If the request for permit is denied, the tree commission will reduce its finding and reasons for denying to a short, concise statement. They should be entered into minutes. An exact copy of the findings shall be delivered to the person who applied for the permit and whose request was denied. And then that person whose request for permit was denied by the tree commission may appeal to the Board of Commissioners.
My question with that is that based on that being on 13404, item 1 or A, is that says to review and hear applications and determine by vote granting of permits regulating the planting, pruning, maintenance, and removal of trees on streets and publicly owned property. That does not specifically say site development or subdivision development.
So it makes one wonder if,
It almost seems like they're giving us lots of authority over the trees that are on city property,
but that's not what this says.
and that's where A would come in. And then on item 2, where it says see appendix item B, that's the tree protection plan, where that would come into play. That's how I'm reading it. I could be way wrong.
Appendices are not labeled A or,
They are way over
Oh, I
here
see.
in,
Thank you.
I had,
I
I actually discovered that after I made the copies and rewrote them.
thank you, I apologize for
But I think 13404, item 2, protection plan proposals, it's that definition of what is a tree protection plan. It goes back to that, defining a tree protection plan.
that. And in that case, it is reviewed by us but approved through the planning commission.
Correct, because a planning commission would actually give the approvals to start moving dirt and to start building.
So,
I think what I find interesting about A is that if we deny a permit of planting, pruning, maintenance, removal of trees on streets and other publicly owned property, that it would be appealed to the BOC, when you kind of think the BOC would be the one who owns, for lack of a better word, that property. So why were we going to appeal to the BOC? That doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, isn't that correct? The BOC would be technically the
I have no idea why anybody would need to apply for a permit to do landscaping work on city property.
they have before. When they did the, was it the fire hall they did on 96? They had to,
I think so. Oh, okay. Say we want to change our landscaping. and
Well,
have it-
they wanted to remove trees.
and
It might be an individual too who's got issues with
City right away.
right away.
And I could see that scenario, say there's a new fire station and they've got an idea they
Right.
want to plant, and they come and say, well, it's not on there, and they think this will be a beautiful plant, let's take it to the BOC and let them make a final decision, each side make their case, and they'll decide. So I can see a scenario. And that would be the Appendix A. What Appendix B, which, I don't see that item B on the appendix. Do you see where that's at?
It is,
This right here.
Oh, it's got a pencil mark. Okay.
yeah, well, they're like way little over in the folds.
Look in your appendix.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they
Got
were
it.
in the fold.
I
and
didn't
It's just
see
a
that
fluke
either.
that I noticed that after I made the copies,
Okay.
otherwise I would have written on
Perfect.
them.
So does a subdivision require a development contract or a site development agreement?
It requires something, but I don't know what it's called off the top of my head.
So if it's city property, we can say no and can be overridden by the BOC on appeal. If it's not city property, but it requires subdivision development plan or a site development plan, then it would come to the tree commission for review and make recommendations that would be included when it goes to the planning commission. Okay.
No clearing, grading, or tree removal prior to plan approval.
But it does only say that we would get to see the tree protection plan. It doesn't say that we would just get to see their landscaping plan.
I'm sorry, what? Tell me that again.
Item on the appendix B,
Okay.
item 1B, where it says, we will see the tree protection plan, not just.
Signed and stamped. The tree protection plan should be prepared by a certified arborist, licensed surveyor, landscape architect or engineer. Shall include the following.
Prior to cleaning, grading, and tree removal. That should be done before we review it and the planning commission approves it. Necessarily say the planning commission has to agree.
Correct, but we can send recommendations up.
It also, again, doesn't say that we get to approve their final landscaping. Want to mow down plan, the tree protection plan, not the final landscaping plan.
Is that appropriate?
I think the final landscaping plan tells us what they've replaced. If we're gonna have the tree, the tree bank, and we're gonna have the, worksheet that calculates, thank you, the density worksheet, then there needs to be, to me, it would be us, but there needs to be some way to say, okay, well, if their tree protection plan included them mowing down 900 caliper inches of trees, then we want to make sure, I would think, that we would see on their final landscaping plan, the replacement of the 75% of the 900 caliper inches of trees that they've mown down.
And we only start counting at 4 inch. But for Scott, I was clarifying.
Right, yeah, they start at 4. That's-
So they count the ones that are 4 inches, and they count the ones that are viable. I mean, if there are trees that are dead, if there are trees that are dying, they don't count those.
But if you have like a big old
Oak tree.
16-inch oak tree.
A
that's
200-year-old
60 feet tall,
oak tree in
that
front
don't
of
count on this
Taco
thing.
Bell.
Oh,
So our interest in that, in the landscaping would specifically be related to trees that have been removed and trees that have been replaced. And then maybe, I guess, looking at the calculation if there's a differential. But we're not looking at shrubs. We're not looking at, when I think of landscape plan, I'm thinking of all the others. That would be immaterial to our purposes, is that true?
well, that would be, I think, come under Mike's jurisdiction to say, as the city arborist, that these are all on our tree list, or all on our shrub list, or all on our bush list.
And I think what concerns me about that is that, once again, instead of having a committee that, because it puts an awful lot of
Pressure on one person.
on the planning commission too, to know all the landscape ordinances and all that. And it puts, and Mike is not an employee of the city. He's a contract worker. But if he's not here, then who's looking at that? I mean, if he's on vacation or if he's busy with his own job, I mean, who's looking at that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, because he does have the time, I think he spends in the staff meetings,
Staff review meetings,
in
yes.
theory, for that purpose, but the question of what if he's not available, how do they handle it? Yeah, that's a good question, I don't know.
So it would make sense to me that to take the pressure off of Mike and to take the pressure off the planning commission having to know all of this in addition to what they already have to know, that if we saw those things and sent up our recommendations to the planning commission, it would make more sense for the whole flow of everything. Yes,
I'm just thinking, this Appendix D that we
Has
have
never been seen.
able to find.
and then we decided at one point in time that Appendix B was supposed to be the community tree plan.
Correct, but it says shall include, and I don't know that maybe this community tree plan has bits and pieces that we have pulled together, such as the tree list and the shrub list and the density worksheet, but maybe a formal tree protection plan.
Oh, you mean right here where it says to be developed in, under D?
Because it says, the tree community plan shall include but not be limited to the goals and mission of the tree commission, which standard tree maintenance and planting specifications and permit application procedure.
So do we think all of it's been done except the permit part?
Well, we've got the authorized tree specimen list for planting on city property. We have a tree regulate not only any public trees, but also any site that requires a development contract or site development agreement,
Let's say both of those things.
Yes.
and policies and procedures for maintaining the Tree City Bank. We do have the Tree City Bank. Specimen list, we have bits and pieces of this community tree plan, but I don't know if that's considered be formalized or finalized, and maybe that's the piece that's been missing or incomplete. We've never been able to find this Appendix D because it says
And I think that it has been developed, we just never have put it where it's supposed to be. When you think,
I think parts of it have been developed.
so what, okay. No trash or debris should be burned beneath the trees.
On that, I'm sorry, did you just say don't burn trees beneath the trees?
Trash and debris beneath the trees.
13-420 does state a tree protection plan, so that's the protection plan. That's not the community tree plan. It's the protection plan, tree list. Since added the additional information regarding the shrub list. And I want to say we, at one point, although I don't see it clearly, the density worksheet, we were formally voted on that.
We did. So,
One exercise might be if I were to go start at the last known ordinance that totally repealed everything before it, start there, and then I just cut and paste from each of the ordinances that came after piecing pieces in, and make a document that not only has everything, but this paragraph's gone, I'll replace it with the other, and I'll call it out where it came from, so that we have inheriting everything, all the changes, we have a single document, then we could compare it to that other document, which I guess is, what's the title of that document? That one right there.
Actually an MTAS.
What's it called?
It's
Title 13.
of the,
What's that title? I'm sorry, I can't read. Tree planting and protection. Yeah, so I think that is an attempt to bring all the things, this exercise, and put it in one working document. I guess the true policy document versus the ordinances, but it should be based on the ordinances. So if I went through an exercise on the ordinances and produced a document, then I could compare it to that document, and then I could see things that are out of whack. And we would have the master that's based on the ordinances, and we would know that if there's any differences, it's something that needs to be addressed there.
can you put the differences in italics or something so we'll be able to more clearly?
Yeah,
Is
what
that
I would
what you
envision
said?
is the master,
Yes.
and then, yeah, it would probably be just a block. It would be a different color altogether with this block comes from this ordinance on this date. This paragraph comes from this ordinance on this date, and then we can just see it all together and then compare those rules, because I still think we are missing, some ordinances.
Well, I know we're missing the newest ones because we don't have the ordinance changing the makeup of the.
That's right, and so
Commission.
that may be the only one we're missing, or that may be, we know about that one. Are there any that we don't understand? Because we don't want to go through this exercise and then find out there was an ordinance that nobody remembered or knew about that nullified everything we've talked about.
I think the only thing that has been passed since I've been on the
Makeup.
board is the makeup of the commission.
Okay.
I mean, I know that's something that's been changed since then.
That sounds right to my recollection as well. And so I don't know, maybe that's one that we could get, the last one that's missing, and then I don't mind taking that on as a project over a few days in this coming month to piece this document together and then bounce it against that, send that out to everybody. And if we can get that understood, I think at that point we're ready with those two documents and the differences, ready to look at other cities.
Then why don't we ask Brandy to give us all the ordinances that pertain to the tree commission from now back to
The last one that we
we have
have,
here,
the
which
most
was,
recent one.
2010, the last one?
2014 ordinance 850. Revised language pertaining to the tree bank fund and allow funds to be used on publicly owned City of Fairview property and easements.
Do I have that in my hand? And I'm just blind and cannot see.
We don't have everything that was passed out today because some of it were passed out in our last meeting. And so
Okay.
these represent the pieces that we identified as missing. So back home, I'll have everything except for things after this date of November 2014. Are there any, and we know, and we can even give a hint in that request to say, we think we are missing at least one based on the membership makeup.
Okay, and that's the one that Will mentions also, correct? Does he mention?
I don't think he mentions
actually
that.
doesn't mention that
No.
one at all.
I think that one just wasn't on the radar. We just remember it.
No, I meant the November, the 2014.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That one. Okay, so we need everything from today back to 11/20/14.
Yep, and then with that, I can compile, just make a file folder and compile it all into one working document, compare it to the document we were just talking about, which is kind of the policy, I guess, or the implementation of that. And there will be differences, because we've already found some, which is okay. It just helps us understand. And then, based on the master compiled ordinance document, we can now bounce that against a few of the other cities' best practices and see what might be missing or what might make sense to modify. And I don't know at the end of that, that exercise, if it would end up being another one of those repeal and replace wholly, right? We've compiled a master document, brought it all the way forward, added some things, and then people don't have this exercise of, what's this plus 6 others to get you, every once in a while, just recompile it. But that sounds reasonable, and it sounds like I understand how to make progress there. And then after that, we'll compare it to other cities and assemble our new document.
I agree.
So I think the action item then is, Debbie, you'll ask to make that request, is that right?
Yes,
Things going back to the November 2014. I will then work on compiling all of these changes into one master that calls out where the different parts and pieces came from. And then we can review that in our next meeting. And then the meeting after that, bring in other city ordinances, whether we want to wait for the regularly scheduled meeting, or maybe if there's a time emergency, we could do another special meeting. We'll just see how we are at that meeting.
Not be here the May
Standard,
2nd meeting, or whatever,
right,
April, June.
June.
Whatever next month's meeting is, I won't be here. I will be in the Caribbean.
Needed vacation.
Yes, obviously, if I can't find words anymore.
So that meeting, then you won't be here, but we can spend that time just comparing differences. And then maybe the next month when you come back, we'll bring in some other cities and we'll spend a bit of time seeing if there's anything we want to bring across. Sound reasonable? Any other discussion on this topic? So that takes us to Section 6, new business. 6.1, roadscapes update. Project on 100 Highway and 96 Junction in Fairview. Plant replacement, mulch weed abatement. Mike Berkeley is on that for just a general update from what he's absorbed. So
Oh, it got mowed. It looks nice.
we still want to have that update, I think, and hear if there's any concerns or the latest and greatest from Mike. So
the latest and greatest is that we're stuck with how it looks for at least until the contract runs out for the grant. We have to make sure there are no dead plants in the median. We have to replace anything that dies. We took official custody of that in December, I believe. So it's ours. And we cannot make any changes because the state did not approve changes. And so we're kind of stuck with what we have. We just have to figure out how to make it look better.
So we should carry this forward on the agenda item to hear from Mike on ideas he would have on making that look better. Is that?
Well, but I think those ideas he's going to have to relay to the city.
So it's more of an operations discussion.
Correct. It's
Okay.
not a tree commission
So at this point, we
discussion.
don't need to bring it back unless, all right,
Unless, no.
okay. Six point two, Bowie Park's landscape design update, funding for design and planning of landscape architecture, design encompassing the full park system. This has Debbie Rainey's name.
We have not yet gotten that far to put that in place. We've talked about it, but we've not moved on that yet.
So should we bring it forward as old business next?
But let's wait until, I would say, August, because now it's too late to even start. That'll give us a little while to get a landscape architect hired. And we're using, I think they've agreed to use general fund money plus tree bank money.
So for agenda purposes, should we just remove it until such time you
Let's-
tell us we're ready, or?
Let's put it back on the agenda for August to follow up. How's that? And if something comes up between now and then I can just put it on the agenda.
Okay. Happy to do that. I have a special folder of old stuff to be new again.
Item 7, staff review, meeting update with Mike. So we'll just leave that standing item for next meeting. Item 8, update on tree bank funds.
I did not get the bank statement, but as far as I know, the only money that's been pulled out of there is what we had reported last month. That was pending to be pulled out, which was paying the city engineer for his attendance at the tree commission meeting. Isn't that correct, Christie?
I believe so, yeah.
Item number 9, citizens' comments.
I think that the city has started referring. I've always really.
Yeah, it's nice. I've sent thank you notes that day when I got home.
Okay,
To the volunteers and to their mom and parents, and also kind of explained to them about what this was helping on the longer term with the Tree City application. I've got pictures, they were okay, but the pictures that came in the Loblolly Times, they were nicer, and they had, like, they were identified, like who's in the picture, so those were better than, because I didn't identify, I just had
The
a,
ones I've saw.
but I've still got some far away pictures that I'll include in the package that, I'll take what was in the paper plus some other stuff there that just kind of showed our tent and things like that.
Are you using your microphone, Jane?
It's right there.
It's not working.
It's turned on, so. Anyway, I think it'd be nice to start a scrapbook, since this was our first Fairview Arbor Day. Something to think about. I know that's not on the agenda, but since we're talking, is it not working at all? Or am I just not close
That's
enough?
because she doesn't, she's not close enough to it.
Yeah, I think a scrapbook's fine, it's just
Who's gonna do
I
the
don't have,
scrapbook?
I just don't have time.
I will
For some
collect
reason,
the
I have a hard time.
material if you
Then
provide it.
yeah, so I'll send, I can send you the pictures I have for that as
Okay,
well
and
then.
the flyers or whatever, we can.
And the newspaper articles, all that can go in there.
I was trying to get a visual of you making scrapbooks.
I'm not a good scrapbooker. I don't have,
You can go
I'm
down
not
to the,
artistically inclined.
you can go down to the scrapbook place and do that.
Okay, so I will send that information. Last item is 10, and I would just make a note that our next regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesday, June 5th, 28.
Scott, before you adjourn us,
Yes?
I think that we approved the agenda, but I don't know that we actually approved the minutes. I'd like to go back and,
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Yes, I think you're right.
Second.
okay.
And these are the approval of the minutes for the monthly tree commission meeting that occurred Tuesday, April 3rd of 2018.
I'll
Motion.
approve. Aye.
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 Thank you for catching that. Yeah, I got distracted on the agenda.
Yes, now you can go on.
So our next meeting will be Tuesday, June 5, 2018, 7 PM at City Hall. Christie, you won't be here for that meeting, we know.
Let me check my calendar. If it matters.
It would matter because yeah, we'd need the three of us left. And if we don't, if it looks like we won't have that, then we should probably reschedule on a day that would work for everybody so we can.
As long as we start at 7, I'm good. There's not any danger of it being earlier.
No.
Okay.
And how are
As
you?
far as
looking?
I know, I don't,
Okay, so I
left my
guess if any of us, we know you'll be gone, but if any of us have things change, and if any of it, we'll just communicate with email and we'll try to reschedule that as a special meeting so we can at least have monthly exercise.
I'll probably go through and make all the changes to the agenda that we know about onto a Word doc and just send that to you so that you have at least
That would be
a
wonderful.
draft.
Yeah,
so that
thank
you can
you.
just fill in the blanks.
That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, movement to adjourn,
Adjourn.
meeting adjourned.